授，还有我们在座的各位师友大家午安。我想今天我们非常高兴能够有这样的机会，邀请到来自芝加哥大学的苏元熙苏教授来为我们做这场的专题的一个讲演。那这场的专题讲演，它的题目是“咨尔汉黎，均是一民，流放诗人在世界边缘上”，涉及到那个诗人这么一颗敏感的心，当他特别遇到某些特殊的一个事件而离开他原来的家乡，到其他的各地去，产生的一些各种的一种感受。那我相信，在苏元熙教授的分析之下，一定可以给我们带来非常多的一些的启发。那我们现在就不多占用时间，我们把时间就交给苏元熙苏教授，请。
谢谢林老师，谢谢大家。我知道今年是 Christmas Eve， 所以很多人可能有家庭责任。那么谢谢，忘了这个重要的设备。那么我们就开始吧。One way that the high culture of the Central States made contact with the cultures of surrounding peoples was through exile. The court used its powers of nomination to remove a troublesome official or the leader of a quarreling faction from the capital. In so doing, at the same time, it continued the consolidation of its control in the borderlands, and quite possibly, as an added convenience, exposed the disgraced official to the risk of death from tropical diseases. One famous story concerns an official who was so afraid of banishment that he refused to have even a map of the South in his official quarters. Sure enough, he eventually fell out of favor and received the summons to pack his bags and go to a remote tropical prefecture. The most available English terms for this practice, exile and banishment, as usual do not quite correspond to the reality. For it is not across a border and into a foreign jurisdiction that the erring official is sent, but to a distant and untrodden part of the same empire, there to prod and hector some of the emperor's least promising candidates for civilization. Language, or rather the unavailability of a common language, is a frequent theme in the long tradition of Southern strangeness. I'm taking that phrase from Edward Schaeffer. Let's see if we can make the, yeah. So, Han Yu describes living in one of those desolate places in these terms. Right? He says, in the county seat, there are no permanent residents or settlers, and the garrison is unstaffed. At the bend of the river, surrounded by reeds and tall bamboos, is an outpost ringed by 10 or so houses of people with bird-like language and savage faces. Right? When I arrived, we had no words in common, and the most I could do was scratch characters on the ground. Thereby, I was able to order them to pay ground rent and taxes and agree to contracts. There is no reason for any visitors to come by. Right? So this Niao Yu Yi Mian and Yan Yu Butong is pretty much a defining feature of the borderland. You might as well converse with a crocodile. Liu Zongyuan describes his arrival among the Dong people of Liuzhou, his place of exile in Guangxi, in these verses, where he says, 君臣南下皆通经，义夫书音不可亲，筹相宫廷问从义，欲投张府作纹身. Right? He says, going south from the prefecture, from the moment you cross a ford, the clothing is different, the words are strange, it is all hard to accept. With a heavy heart, I face the audience hall and must rely on a translator. I might as well throw away my cap of office and join the tattooed savages. I'm sure you all appreciate the little Zhuangzi allusion in the last line. It's from the story about the futility of trying to sell Confucian ceremonial caps to natives who shave their heads and go about naked with tattooed skin. What better expression of the utter hopelessness of the task could you find? And indeed, although Liu Zongyuan's southern exile is generally thought to introduce a period of new creative energy, his writings from that outpost, such as Yongzhou Baji, are all about landscape with scarcely a human trace. And his letters from exile, which have survived, concern friends in the capital, current policy debates, occasionally his own feelings of isolation and melancholy. But from these writings, the local populations and their customs are absent. Only the descriptions of landscape remain to fix the site of Liu Zongyuan's 14 years of exile. Let's see, I think, yeah. But it is an uninhabited landscape of rocks, ponds, and trees. This was the state of mind of the classic Tang exiles, living among people with whom they could not talk, and having no interest in those people except as the recipients of their administrative decrees. Han Yu and Liu Zongyuan conducted their social life in letters to and from friends in the capital. Indeed, more space is given in Liu Zongyuan's 8 records of Yongzhou to the poisonous insects and snakes of southern Hunan than to the tattooed human inhabitants. I may be missing something in the writing of these 2 exiles, by the way. Those who have spent more time with them are invited to correct my selective impressions. When Su Dongpo's opposition to Wang Anshi's reforms earned him a second exile in 1097, it was to the island of Hainan, at the time no tropical paradise but a malaria-ridden open-air dungeon. Outwardly, this might seem like a repetition of the fates of Han Yu and Liu Zongyuan. But Su never did anything like other people. Old, sick, but never completely discouraged, Su Shi invented a new identity for himself on Hainan. I am a Hainanese, he says. And also, 咨尔汉黎 均是一民 hearken ye Hainan Li, we are but one people. The poems and prefaces in his collection from that exile, Hai Wai Ji, speak of his friendships with some of these Li people, the original inhabitants of the island, and show him lingering with his neighbors over a few cups of their home-brewed liquor. These locals have names, Li Ziyun and the Lis, Zhu Li, for example. Some of them can converse with him in Chinese, some of them are Su Shi's students, others are illiterate locals speaking only the Aboriginal language. Su Shi had his son, Guo, with him, so his isolation was not total. Still, one doesn't imagine Han Yu or Liu Zongyuan reporting this kind of random encounter that you find in this little poem, right? 野径行行遇小童，理因笑语说颇翁，东行侧章寻李老，打狗荆棘似冰封。Right? After walking long on the rustic path, I meet a small boy who, with Li accent and smiling manner, addresses me as old Mr. Dongpo. I continue eastward with my cane in search of the Li elders, smiting dogs and scattering chickens like a man deranged. Su Dongpo was determined to make the best of a bad situation, though he expected his banishment to be lifelong. Right? He was quite old at the time, and Hainan was famous as a place where people caught tropical diseases and died. Nonetheless, he was not willing to fall into the self-pity and isolation of certain of his eminent literary predecessors. The model for Su Shi's exile will be not the wronged Qu Yuan, constantly protesting his own righteousness, and not the grouchy Han Yu or Liu Zongyuan seeking consolation in rocks and trees, but Tao Yuanming, who retired from official service and went to live in the country for his own peace of mind. In poems echoing Tao Yuanming's rhymes and emulating his manner, and inspired by politeness and gratitude toward his local hosts as well, Su Shi occasionally makes statements that verge on hyperbole, like this one. 借我3亩地，睫毛为子林，绝舍堂可学，化为林母敏。Right? If you or someone will lend me 3 acres of ground, I'll thatch a roof and make a house next to yours. And if that Shrike tongue of theirs can be learnt, I'll transform into a child of Mount Li. The central mountain of Hainan, Mount Li, was considered the mother of all the island's indigenous inhabitants. Did Su Shi actually envision himself going native and becoming a Li? Probably not. But the fact that he could imagine putting down roots in this way and turning his back on his literary reputation and the life of the capital is already a kind of Zhuangzian reversal of values. A sort of a qi wu lun. As if to find himself a part to play in local life, Su Shi writes a series of poems echoing the rhymes of Tao Yuanming's Quan Nong. The preface observes that in Hainan, Are many fields left fallow? The inhabitants sell sandalwood to get a living. The glutinous rice they grow is not enough for them to eat, so they resort to a mixture of taro and assorted grains to fill their bellies. Lamenting their plight, I followed the rhymes of Tao Yuanming's exhortations to the tillers to inform the more educated among the local people. And so that's the situation in which he utters these famous lines about Han and Li being just one people. Right? So, and you'll notice that this is in somewhat archaic language, echoing Shangshu and Shijing. Right? So, hearken ye Han and Li, you are but one people. The vulgar barbarian who will not obey, can he be trusted? Resentment and jealousy are on the rise. Some even face off with weapons, but let the deception cease. The problems begin with ourselves. Right? 曲子我人. So, all right. So he's outlining some problems and giving advice. All this is in the great tradition of Chinese poet as statesman. Heaven has sent down disaster on your land. It produces neither barley nor millet. If the people lack necessities, your misfortune lies in that perverse treasure. You cultivate trees for incense, and what you reap is corruption of riches. Greedy men and filthy officials, like hawks and vultures, devour your sustenance. Yep, hold on. Let's go back to that one, yeah. All right, and then Qi Wu Liang Tian, echoing Shijing, right? Who can say that you lack good fields? You have level, fat ground. Hear my words of concern, offered to ensure your lasting felicity. Make plowing your business and be on good terms with your neighbors. Remove the fields, extend your fields to the south and east. Let fathers and elder brothers wield the stick to beat the idlers with. Okay. Ignore gossip, mock the bullies, devise plans to defeat the stupid and stubborn. Find allies among the unassimilated Li, put an end to the reversal of values. When frost comes and your grain is ripe, with thousands of baskets filled, your big community is founded. Now celebrate in a haze of mellow wine. Right? In his exhortations, Su-shi paraphrases the Book of Documents and uses the 4-character verse of the Book of Songs, as if to repeat the founding acts of Chinese culture on this exotic territory. The much-quoted sentence about the identity of Han and Li occurs in the course of uttering this historical fiction. The poem is a document of development policy, arguing for a reordering of the economy of Hainan. The situation at the time of Su-shi's arrival is this. Dealers from the mainland have been paying the Li to harvest sandalwood trees used in the production of luxury goods, such as incense and perfumes. The advantages of participating in this extractive industry, the greatest profits of which are certainly reserved to the exporters, have led the Li to neglect their fields. The pre-contact agriculture, based on taro, demanded little human input and still provides a bare kind of sustenance for the Aborigines who exert themselves for the benefit of the incense traders. You know how it is when you're growing yuto. You simply put it in the ground and it grows, you ignore it for months or years, and you come back and dig it up. It's not like rice where you've always got to be working and tending the field. As has often happened in human history, a commodity that is without value to the people who live in an area, but has great value for outsiders, you might think of oil and diamonds in the present-day world, is seized upon by middlemen who do not have the interests of the locals at heart. Claims over harvesting rights in the incense tree groves are setting one group against another, seemingly disrupting the friendly relations of an earlier age. Su-shi urges his hearers, whether Han or Li, to band together against the unscrupulous traders and their allies among the island's officials. They should abandon the collecting of incense wood and put themselves to work tilling the soil. By growing grain, a form of agriculture that requires intensive human input, they will ensure their self-sufficiency for the future and, as a side benefit, repress idleness and bad behavior. Right, so the bit earlier on about how the fathers and elder brothers will deal with the idlers correlates with the part where he's promising a reward in the form of nice, mellow wine that will make you feel good and hazy at the end of a season. So the wild or unassimilated Li, the Shengli, will be progressively incorporated. The result, Su-shi promises, will be the founding of a great society, 大族尔社, with its seasonal rituals of ale brewing and celebration, a stable hierarchy of roles in which fathers and elder brothers are the recognized leaders. And presumably, tax revenues are forthcoming for the prefectural government. In economic terms, Su-shi proposes the replacement of one model of development, commodity extraction for export, by another, intensive agriculture organized by family lineages, supporting local consumption and generating in-kind tax payments. This second pattern is the orthodox economic model of the agriculturally based Chinese dynastic states, from Shen Nong, or whoever was the historical equivalent of that legendary personage, on down. Adopting this second pattern will require the Li to abandon their previous diet, calendar, and probably family organization and religious belief as well. Su-shi's essay about the wasteful practice of cattle sacrifice as a form of medicine suggests one way that a different way of feeding the populace might alter religious habits. So the writings of Su-shi on Hainan exhibit both an openness to the non-Han or incompletely Sinicized people of the region, a sympathy for their difficulties, and a plan for their ever more complete integration into the Chinese world in the guise of development. At least this is a more positive mode of development than the piratical extraction of surplus from natural resources that had predominated on Hainan. Inclusion is always better than mere exploitation. The former builds a moral community, even if one with coercion, but the latter simply instrumentalizes people. Neither is quite the same as equality, but perhaps that's a lot to ask. One of the long-term effects of Su-shi's cultural advocacy would be to set up the necessary conditions for the education and distinguished career of Qiujun, born on Hainan some 320 years after Su-shi's arrival. Qiujun, who offered, as we saw in the fourth lecture, a philosophy of the transformation of remote, alien, or alienated people into ideal subjects of the way. This we can take as a concrete illustration of the looping effect of humankinds, another phrase from Ian Hacking that I was using in the fourth lecture. I've already talked about the value of changing one's perspective about the relations of Hua and Yi by taking the standpoint of people who stand in the way of the expansion of Chinese culture to encompass its borderlands. There is another possible viewpoint, that of the relatively disinterested observer, someone who brings the intellectual heritage of China to the task of understanding outsiders, but is not committed to conquering or assimilating them. I find one example of this viewpoint in the travel narrative of Changchun Zhenren, the immortal of everlasting spring, as written down by the Zhenren's disciple, Li Zhichang, and published under the title Xiuji, not to be confused, of course, with the infinitely more famous Xiuji, the novel. This eminent Taoist master of the Quanzhen sect was invited to offer counsel to Genghis Khan in the year 1220 and journeyed from Shandong to Beijing, through Mongolia, Samarkand, and on to the Hindu Kush in pursuit of the itinerant emperor's camp. After passing through the Great Wall, Changchun Zhenren notes the ever rarer villages and the ever larger plains. And he makes some observations which I offer you here. He says, going westward, one sees settlements appear from time to time in the mountains. The people are somewhat concentrated. They make their home in a black wagon covered with a white tent. They live from herding and hunting, dress in skins and furs, and feed on meat and yogurt. The men wear their hair in 2 long braids behind the ears. The women wear a tall birch bark headdress. They have no custom of writing. They make contracts either verbally or with an exchange of notched sticks. If they have food, everyone joins in. If anyone is in dire straits, all pitch in to help. They never disobey an order. They never break a promise. Such were the customs of antiquity. So all that is the voice of Changchun Zhenren. And then his disciple adds in, the immortal of everlasting spring wrote a poem to commemorate these facts. So then we have the poem. Mountains and rivers stretch out limitlessly, unceasing wind and fog, waters without end. How did the Creator make this terrain productive? By causing the people to raise horses and sheep. They consume blood and flesh just as the first men did. Coiffures and braids like theirs are not seen in the central states. No need for the sages to reveal civilization to them. From age to age, everywhere, only freedom has been their lot. Right? 圣贤不得垂问话，历代纵横之自由。I'm not completely happy with the translation of 自由 as freedom in this context, because 自由 has been overlaid by so many modern meanings, especially the political ones. To get a better sense of what it is doing here, look at its placement in the lines, where it's symmetrical with 文化, or civilization. 自由 here means a lack of constraining structures, the almost unthinkable condition of everyone fending for him or herself and yet not becoming entangled in perpetual conflict. So the Taoist envoy combines observations with value judgments in his short description of the cross-border population. These nomads, encountered somewhere near the present Ulaanbaatar, fall in line with already ancient stereotypes of primitive man. They live on and with animal products. They do not cultivate the earth, and thus they correspond to a stage in Chinese history that must be sought in the far distant path, before even Shen-nong, the divine husbandman. As one leaves Beijing and travels northwest, one travels backward in time. Their ignorance of writing puts these nomads outside the whole process of Chinese recorded history, always heavily reliant on written media, oracle bones, bronzes, bamboo slips, silk paper, and so forth. This lack is not necessarily a failing. Having no means to deceive, they say yes when they mean yes, no when they mean no, and both good and bad fortune are communal, not private. Their customs are admirable, though primitive. These are good, indeed noble savages. An echo, or it seems to me, of the Xianbei song about the sublime steppe landscape, its infinities of sky, highlands, and water, gives the savage's nobility an appropriately elevated backdrop. Changchun Zhenren's positive impressions of these briefly encountered nomad groups put him in the intellectual lineage of Sima Qian, whose Xiongnu Liezhuan, chapter 110 of the Shiji, gave to the whole of subsequent Chinese historical literature its model of the representations of the peoples of the North and the states of Central Asia, as Nicolas di Cosmo has observed. Di Cosmo sees two facets in Sima Qian's account of the northern peoples. One, a rich empirical documentation derived from first-hand interviews with people who had lived in the North and dealt with the nomads. And two, a speculative and ideological response to the intellectual currents of the time. Sima Qian sought not only to record what had happened in history, but to explain it. Thus, his empirical information contributes to a theory of the barbarian. This theory reposes on one constant: change. Pressed by the constant need to find new grazing areas and sources of water, the nomads create for themselves minimally constraining institutions that can be built and unbuilt moment by moment, contrasting with the Chinese Empire's zeal for permanence and solidity, and above all, with the burden of laws, taxes, relationships, and obligations that determine every Chinese citizen's every move. If Sima Qian's contemporaries suspected him of barbarophilia, the scheme of values that makes him see in barbarism a possible way of life stem from Lao Tzu and the early Taoist school, which excelled, as Sima Qian's father Sima Tan put it, in changing with the times and responding to the alterations of things. 于是迁移应物变化. And it is once again someone claiming the heritage of Lao Tzu who, however much the content of Taoism had changed in the previous 14 centuries, can see the outsiders as people worth emulating, as Changchun Zhenren does. The Yuan Emperor's appreciation of the Taoist doctrine may also have prepared this Taoist to look favorably on the customs of the Mongol steppe. Right? So there's an association of these nomads with the empire that is currently ruling. At least Changchun Zhenren shows no inclination to indoctrinate them or convert their pastures into wheat fields. Some 500 years after the venerable Taoist passed through Ulaanbaatar and Samarkand on his way to converse with Genghis Khan about the mysteries of the universe, such ziyou was no longer available. The Qing emperors, when they looked northwest, saw territory to be put to use and populations to be removed or incorporated. Under Kangxi and Qianlong, they brought the northwest under their control. The Dzungar nation, a confederation of junior Mongol lineages led by nobles not in the line of descent from Genghis Khan, showed too little subordination to the Qing, and after 15 years of off-and-on war, were practically exterminated. New outposts were built in the former Dzungar territory and surrounded with military colonies, Bingtun, penal colonies, Qiantun, and agricultural colonies, Hutun. Let's see, and here's an illustration of the condition of China during the Qing Empire, with that big green area being either the protectorate of Tibet or the areas conquered over the course of the 17th and 18th centuries, basically the first 100 years of Qing rule. So you can see how much they expanded the area of China. Along with soldiers, administrators, internal migrants, and the merchants who arrived to supply the above-mentioned groups, those outposts also housed a number of disgraced officials sent there to live out their terms of exile. One such was Ji Yun, chief editor of the massive Siku Quan Shu, a Hanlin scholar renowned for his wit and learning, but not careful enough in his personal dealings. He has had the unusual honor for a Hanlin scholar of becoming the star of a mainland TV series. Right? Working at the very summit of Qing officialdom, Ji Yun came to have advanced knowledge of a bribery investigation that involved his son-in-law. For divulging this privileged information, Ji was sentenced to 2 years banishment to Urumqi in Xinjiang. And I seem to have lost my pointer, but you can see Urumqi way up there in the former Dzungar territory in Xinjiang. So, you know, you can count the miles from Beijing to Urumqi to get a sense of the dimensions of this exile. While there, Ji kept a notebook, and after his return, he reorganized his notes into a collection of 160 four-line poems, Wulumuqi Zashi. Perhaps on account of their being composed after his period of exile had been completed and Ji Yun was back in the emperor's good graces, the poems, as one contemporary observed, are free of bitterness and protest. They are rather the record of a curious observer, alert to new features of landscape, climate, and custom, and eager to document the changes that Qing resettlement was bringing to the region. The effect is, if I may put it anachronistically, similar to a photo album, snapshots selected from local life and framed by the narrative of a journey. What any traveler notices is, of course, what that person is prepared to notice. What is written down is what is deemed worthy of the reader's curiosity. A shared context of prior information prepares reader and writer to see and respond together, again, just like a photo album. Every poem in the collection deals in familiarity and surprise, two dimensions constantly in play. The series opens, 山微芳草, here we go, sorry. 山微芳草翠烟屏, what is this? 招待新城街九城, 行到从事歌舞树, 歌舞, wait a minute, that's not 树. Shit, sorry, thank you. Let's see, I've forgotten the, I'm sorry, Lü, Tan Yu, sorry, just completely forgetting the characters for the two ones there. Shang Kan Qi Ping, all right? I should have spent a little time with the dictionary today. At any rate, mountains surrounding a plain of fresh grass and emerald haze. In the distance, the new city added to the old. Ascending to the temple, one can hear song and dance from the stage and observe the checkerboard pattern of green fields. Ji Yun's notes observe that the old town was situated too far from sources of water, and the new one, named Dihua, or conveying transformation, is better located. North of the city is a hill crowned with a temple of Guandi, from which one can observe the layout of theaters and city walls. He opens then with what Hollywood would call an establishing shot. The seasons are not the same in North China. It says, mountain fields are irrigated by water piped from a spring, this spring water being nothing but accumulated snow melt. A white-headed local has never heard in all his 80 years of spring rains that cause the rice sprouts to grow. Right? Spring rains causing the rice sprouts to grow is the most absolutely normal thing in all of China, but here's someone who's never heard of that. Good land is easy to find, water is hard to get, as Ji-yun observes in poem 26. Also a reversal of the situation in the south of China. The economy of the region had been transformed since 1756 by the implantation of Chinese agricultural colonies. Soils left fallow are used as pasture for millennia, now irrigated by the snows of the Tian Shan Range, produced wheat so abundantly that it sold for less than it cost to produce it, an unheard of development in an age when scarcity was the rule. There are 5 or 6 poems about the price of wheat in this collection, by the way, just to sort of show you how much attention Ji-yun thinks it deserves. The price of grain was not the only anomaly noted by Ji-yun. The imbalance of men and women in the military and settler population shifted the custom of the bride's family giving a dowry to that of the man's family giving a bride price, an almost cosmological reversal. The phrase "Shizhi," who would have thought it, appears often in the collection to mark these moments of astonishment at the wonders and paradoxes of the Far West. Each instance of reversal recalls the customs of the center, of the long-settled central regions as the norm. Ways of life that depart from the norm are noteworthy. Some of them have already been discovered by wily entrepreneurs and arbitrageurs. The inhabitants of the Far West drink heavily. Dealers in wine and spirits go back east every year with 20 or 30,000 tiles of profit from supporting this habit. Smoking from water pipes astonishes our narrator. Fluffy spring clouds rise close at hand. On meeting a friend, the tobacco case opens, no talk of money. The fire god has his temple worth 1,000 in gold. The donor, you'll be surprised to learn, is named Water and Smoke. And Ji-yun adds a little note saying, the Western people have the habit of smoking from a hookah, right, a cultural diffusion from the Middle East, I assume. Right? Loafers always have their tobacco pouch at the ready, and when they encounter a friend, they invite him to smoke with no thought of repayment. Instead, the smoker goes and makes an offering to the fire god. In this way, this god has become master of a temple worth 1,000 in gold. A temple built on nothing but smoke and water. So there's a little bit of wit there. The dogs of the Northwest impose themselves on the newcomer's attention. No need for watchtowers or the challenge who goes there. These dogs have thick coats and sharp snowy teeth. But when in the middle of the night they start barking at shadows, the dreamer can never attain his southern branch. And maybe the Nanzhi here has got something to do with the whole topic of exile and departure from the usual. Economic development attracts peddlers and dealers of all kinds. There are shadowy Tibetans. Oops. The Tibetan tribesmen keep to themselves, coming from time to sell nuts in the city market. Exactly like the swallows of spring, they come and go, heedless of human beings. The silent-footed aboriginal is a constant in travel literature. Right? You might think of the depiction of Native Americans in American literature. Or there are Mongols engaged in the traditional exchange of horses for bricks of tea. When the snow begins to melt on Mount Yin in the Chula territory, long-haired ponies pass in small groups through Longdui. The head translator checks the names and surnames carefully, for these are not the usual kind of merchant. The Mongolian horse trade was limited to certain holders of a state license, since horses were for military use primarily. That's why there's the extra attention given to the merchant. Yeah, and other people, by the way, who are interested in these questions of animals in Chinese history have pointed out that over the course of the Song and Ming and Qing dynasties, you have more and more complaints about the quality of horses going down, and very frequently the comment about the quality of the horses goes with the implication that the foreigners, mostly the Mongol tradesmen, are cheating the Chinese buyers. But when you overlay these reports of horse quality with data about climate, it appears that there was less and less water, therefore less and less grass to eat, and the horses were in worse and worse shape. So it wasn't entirely the fault of the dealers. Ji-yun was familiar with the inherited tradition of frontier poetry. Note, for example, the reference to the Xianbei Song of Zhi-le from the Beiqi Shu, with its opening Zhi-le chuan yinshan xia in his opening lines here. That tradition, in fact, allows Ji-yun to write in a generous and free manner befitting his subject, as Qian Daxin observes in his preface to the work, where he says, 无预设愁苦之因，而有传荣烘托之趣. Right? It lacks the melancholy or bitter tone of much exile poetry and makes an inclusive, generous-minded impression. Borders are here shown as being transcended and cultural barriers removed. Ji-yun and his fellow exiles can enjoy wine, vegetables, and even fish from the central regions of China, thanks to the commercial ties reaching up into the northwest. Let's see. Yeah. Music and theater in Urumqi are in no way inferior to those of the capital. Ji-yun's journey to Xinjiang attests to the transformative power of the Qing dynasty at the moment of its greatest expansion. As a chronicler of cultural diffusion, Ji-yun points to evidence of the ritual order of the central states now visible in the far northwest. So we have description of a ritual in a temple, gold, jade, profiles of ritual vases standing out amid greenish smoke. A purple temple rises in the southeast quarter. From time to time, the air Shengping starts up again, and everyone kowtows to the thrice repeated call of 10,000 years. Right? So this is obviously an imperial ceremony, like the emperor's birthday or something like that, which might not have been a big deal before Urumqi was transformed into a garrison town. And Ji-yun adds a note. The ceremony of congratulations to the court is held at the Wanshogong, southeast of town. Music, assembly of officials, exactly as in the central regions. Representatives of the military and administration, as well as merchants, put on shows as signs of gratitude. Local people perform their offerings sincerely and without skimping. The same thing happens at Kuar Kela Wusu. I was unable to identify Kuar Kela Wusu, so if any of you have information about that, I would be grateful. We need to track down that lost town. Not only culture, but nature is modified by the arrival of people from the central regions. Let's see. Oh, no, this is not that quotation. 万家烟火暖云蒸，烧尽天山太古冰. Right? 10,000 hearth fires, writes Ji-yun, have warmed the clouds and melted the ancient snows of the Tian Shan range. In a note, he adds, the climate here has always been extremely cold, but in the past few years it has begun to resemble that of the inner regions. Right? So I think this is not just a natural observation, but also a cultural one. Right? As the region gets acculturated, it goes from being, cold, which is always associated with the barbaric north, to something more like the civilized world. So it's not only an instance of consciousness of climate change, a concept that I think no one could have had in the middle 18th century. As a final and complete sign of normalization, the local administration declares the opening of civil service examinations in Urumqi. And that's this quotation here. It's a mountain fortress, but within it string music and song can be heard. The markets are full of embroidered book covers and ivory clasps. As if to respond to old Zhengqiao, Confucian books have finally passed the river Wonan. Wonan, by the way, is the river closely associated with Genghis Khan, right? So who came along a bit after Zhengqiao, but Ji-yun is showing us his familiarity with all of these narratives of the North and West. Ji-yun adds a note to this poem that says, Zhengqiao had said in his phonological treatise Qi Yin Lue that the books of Confucius would never go a single step beyond the river Wonan, which, by the way, now is very far in the north. It's always been very far in the north. I was surprised to find it's as far as it is. It's north of the present Mongolian-Russian frontier. Up to now, says Ji-yun, there were no booksellers beyond the pass, that is, outside of the 18 provinces of China. One might occasionally find romances and trenchy novels mixed up with other goods for sale by Northwestern peddlers. But now that a cohort of examination candidates has been fixed, shops specializing in books have opened. Contact with alien cultures is much less significant to Ji-yun than the diffusion of the culture that he recognizes as his own. I have not done a quantitative analysis of the themes of this collection of 160 poems, but it is clear that whether he speaks of landscapes, weather, old ruins, feast days, melons, mushrooms, forest, snakes, iron implements, medicines, camels, flowers, oranges, fish, tobacco, horses, ducks, almonds, coal, ghosts, or other images of the faraway country, Ji-yun never enters into conversation with an inhabitant of Xinjiang or inquires into his thoughts and wishes. It is not just that Ji-yun congratulates Xinjiang on having acquired some of the symbols of assimilation to the Chinese way of life. He spends his time in exile among other former Pekingese, eating and entertaining himself exactly as at home. Wulumuchi Zashi is not really a work of ethnography, if by ethnography we understand the description of an effort to understand cultural others. Rather, it is an auto-ethnography of the colony of transplanted Chinese residing in Xinjiang, an account of rapid change in the development of a new society, an enclave that is causing a certain hybridization of the society around it through contact with its edges. The enthusiastic reception the book met with at the time of its publication must be at least partly due to the way it imagines Xinjiang as an infusion of Chinese culture into a foreign landscape, and not to any great degree as a clash of Chinese culture with an unyielding foreign culture. It tells us that cultural expansion still works, even in the Northwest. One message that can be taken from this cheerful book is that there is really no such thing as banishment anymore. A person can be held at a distance from the capital, but no longer will exotic figures with shrike-like tongues and tattooed bodies make him doubt his place in the world. Between his exile and the writing of Wulumuchi Zashi, Ji-yun received an imperial commission to compose an ode on the return of the Torguts, the Tuar-Huta, a junior Mongol lineage that had resided in Russia for 150 years and recently chosen to seek readmission to China. The Qing welcomed them and settled them on the territories formerly occupied by the Zungars, considered disloyal. In his ode written for the Qianlong Emperor's ceremony of welcome to the Togut leaders, Ji-yun presented the return of the Toguts as a confirmation of the theory once expressed by Mencius, that a true king is one who attracts distant peoples by the merits of his rule. Such being indeed the case, said Mencius, the people must flock to him as water flows downward with a rush which no one can repress. 诚如是也，民贵之，有水之就下，沛然谁能御之? Ji-yun's rendition of the theme is hyperbolic. So here we have his 5-character verses celebrating the return of the Toguts as an indication of the benevolent rule exceeding that of the 3 patriarchs, a mighty achievement covering the entire world. Our august dynasty is able to draw near those who are far, extending to the remotest regions its sincerity. So I think this poem more or less speaks for itself. Right? It's kind of a propaganda piece, right? Where he promises a vaster land opening for the Toguts to cultivate, those former Dzungar territories. Happiness resounds from all quarters. Exquisite provisions are laid out. Wine stands ready in winged vessels. So the banquet that the Qianlong Emperor set out for the Togut elders and nobles is treated as kind of a symptom or symbol of the entire future of the Tuar Huta in their new territory. And so there are all kinds of Chinese officials who come to welcome them, belt with whetstone and badges of office, caps and gowns of countless types, see the songs and dancing, dream and reality indistinguishable. Right? So, kind of the festival, the gathering together of all the different ranks and origins of official, which the Qing kind of made a specialty of theirs. Henceforth, says Ji Yun, let the imperial spirit flow unrestricted, the Huangfeng. Let the royal way be fully realized, the Di Dao. Let travelers explore all corners of the world, departing to the whole of land and sea. What Ji Yun is here imagining is a literal realization of the dream of universal sovereignty in ancient texts. 人机所至，周集所通，莫不为君献. I'm quoting from the Huainanzi, but this passage is paralleled in many other ancient texts. Wherever human steps can go, wherever ships and oars can reach, all shall be under one jurisdiction. We might call this centralizing cosmopolitanism, the expansion of a civilization that is imperial, Confucian, and native to the central states to cover the entire world. That civilization is self-evidently a matter of rule, but also of language, writing, and ideology. There is no essential limit to its expansion, as can be seen from its spread to areas far outside the central states, where different languages were displaced, extinguished, or overlaid by the Chinese character. It does, however, run up against empirical limits to expansion as marked by differences in script. Despite Ji Yun's confident prophecies, the Northwest and Southeast have never been entirely painted over by the culture of the center. In previous lectures, I've tried to show that this expansion, when it has occurred in the past, has usually been at the expense of other languages, polities, and cultures. Is this the natural tendency of what we call Chinese culture? Or has it been a repeated moment in a fluctuating balance between puridity and hybridity, monolingualism and polyglottism, the deciding factors of which lie not in Chinese culture itself, but in its shifting power relations with its others? People who only a few years ago were incessantly talking about globalization have now come to realize that for many, contact with others does not bring about concord, but only stimulates a desperate, irrational urge toward tribalism. And obviously in this, I am not talking about Chinese in particular, but alas, about a universal problem. Resentment, in the Nietzschean sense of the word, drives states away from cooperation, limited and negotiated sovereignty, and recognition of the autonomy of others, of other states and of other individuals. For those of us who have inherited a history that identifies the tribe with a universal mission, the outlook cannot but be bleak. I've followed translation through the variations of these 5 lectures as a way of convincing myself, and I hope you as well, that the ethic of interchange is neither dead nor doomed. Thank you very much.
非常谢谢那个苏文熙教授刚刚从韩愈、柳宗元一直到苏东坡到纪云如何那个描述诗人这样的一个敏感的心，在他的一个就是说流放的一个生涯当中，到了异地之后如何去观察这个不同的山川、不同的人民、不同的风情，然后从这里面书写一些他的一个感受，而从这里面可以得出一些我们可以持续加以那个讨论跟思考的一个焦点。那么，我想我们现在非常高兴能够邀请到中央研究院中国文哲研究所的研究员李世学李教授，他的主要的一个专长也是跟我们近代中国的一些宗教 以及翻译文学有密切的关联性。那我们相信接下来能够帮我们在那个苏文熙教授的这一个演讲的内容当中，给我们做一些进一步的讨论跟思考。请。
谢谢主持人。那么很高兴今天来到政大，来这一个等于是有一点迎接我自己的这一个老朋友了。OK， 所以我今天这一个特地去找出一件10几年的这一个衣服啊，那么上面是芝加哥大学的这一个校徽 ，That's right，OK， 这个校名，特地找出来这一个穿，那么来欢迎我们的老朋友。
谢谢您的支持。
我恐怕这一个，我记得好像最早跟他见面的是1990年代初 ，OK， 所以到今天都已经将近30年左右的这一个历史了，蛮长的 ，OK。最近一次见面应该是大概是3年前或4年前，还是在芝加哥大学这一个见面，所以我今天很高兴这一个来听他这一个演讲。那么主持人给我的这一个或者说这一个我们这个中心呐，给我的这一个这一个身份叫做语坛者，我实在不知道什么叫做语坛者，所以但是因为苏教授的关系，所以我还是答应下来了。那我后来这个看到另外一份的这一个怎么说？这个跟今天这场演讲啊相关的是，把我的身份叫做 discussant，OK， 那我就明白多了，知道什么要做什么事情 ，OK， 所以我昨天晚上其实是昨天晚上才拿到稿子，那么也只能够非常快的这一个看过一遍，了解这一个对这一个对苏教授而言啊，那么他的题目到底是想带来什么样子的意思？这 exile 这一个字其实是一个在中国，如果说把它拿来当作是流放，或是贬谪 ，OK， 这些意思其实是会产生一些这个语言方面的这一种问题的 ，OK， 这个问题很简单，也就是说，你被 exile。或者说你被贬谪了 ，OK， 实际上却贬谪的是到自己的国土的从可能从中间贬到这一个比较这一个边缘的这一个地带去 ，OK， 所以这个字眼在翻译的时候，它便产生了一个相当有趣的一个现象啊，也就是说你并不是被 banish， 然后这个out of the country，OK， 你是被 banished 在自己的 country 里面的 ，OK， 这个是中国恐怕是贬谪文化里面，或者说流放史里面啊，这个特别有意思的一个现象。这跟西方这个贬流 ，OK， 这 exile 这一个字的概念是稍微有一些不一样的地方。不过我也真不知道，把你贬到这一个，比方把你贬到这一个海南岛。除了海南岛之外，还能把你贬到哪里去？在过去的话，就是已经是大海了 ，OK， 已经无地可贬了，所以就只能够最多苏东坡也不过就是说被贬到这一个海南岛去而已 ，OK， 所以我想这个题目本身就是很有趣的一个这个可以去思考的一个文化上面的这一个问题。所以我想对韩语来讲啊，这个 exile 这一个概念啊，这个流放的这一种感觉呢，那么其实是被迫这一个离开自己的家庭，自己的语言，自己的习俗，自己的宗教，或是你所信仰的这一个所谓政治上面的这一个中心 ，OK， 这也是苏教授这一篇文章这一个非常重要的一个出发点。那从这个出发点，我们就看到这一个苏教授一路非常有秩序的这一个在铺陈，由柳宗元到纪晓岚的这一个中国的诗人的这一个贬谪史，或者说这一个流放诗的这一个历史。当然，他作为一篇论文，这不大可能就是说 有办法这一个把整部中国这个流放史，我想他最早以我有限的这一个知识，最早你也必须要从这一个屈原开始谈起吧 ，OK。那当然他没有办法这一个从这一个屈原开始这一个开始谈那个贬那一个流放的概念到底是什么，是能够这一个走到什么样子的一个程度，不过我想这个从柳宗元开始啊，也的的确确能够谈到一些这个问题的这一个症结点了。柳宗元流放贬到柳州 ，OK。它其实它的这一个定义其实是非常韩愈式的这一个定义 ，OK， 所以在柳州同盟 ，OK， 那一首诗里面啊 ，OK， 柳宗元对于他这个被贬的这一个柳州啊 ，OK， 它是充满了一种这一个异地之感 ，OK， 异乡感。我想这一个在中国诗里面常常出现的这一个主题 ，OK， 那这种陌生感啊，说实在的，柳州同盟这一首诗里面啊，其实自己本身也提出了一个答案，要怎么样去克服这一种strangeness，OK， 这一个异乡感或者说陌生感。OK， 那就是这一首诗里面的大概是第3句吧。这个所谓筹相宫廷问从义 ，OK， 他说柳宗元说他这个被贬到这个柳州，然后因为当知府的关系，那常常有这个柳州当地的同仁 ，OK， 那么产生纠纷呢，那么来找这一个知府，这个在公堂上面啊。要谈一谈，要这个知府来判案就对了 ，OK， 这个时候问题常常会出现，因为下面的这一个老百姓呢，那么跟这一个堂上啊做的这个父母官呐，彼此之间有语言上面的这种麻烦，这种毛病，这个在中国恐怕这一个是大家都知道，可是大家好像都不怎么去讨论它 ，OK， 是非常怪异的。我听说到清末这一个林觉民啊，那么因为跟这个革命嘛 ，OK， 所以林觉民这一个被判案的时候啊，这个林觉民跟他的这一个判官啊 ，OK， 居然彼此必须要用英文来交谈 ，OK。因为好像一个是广东人，一个是福州人，林觉民好像是福州人 ，OK， 他们彼此之间广东话跟福州话是不能通的，所以这个判案啊，还好刚好2个人，我也不知道英文程度好到哪里去，anyway 就是在那边这一个彼此用英文这一个稍作一些这一个答来答去的 ，OK， 所以我想。这里本身已经提出来这一个翻译这一个概念了。如果说这一个音讯不通啊是一种这一个缺陷的话，那么至少翻译好像能够这一个带来一些补偿 ，OK， 可以这一个也是某种程度的所谓的我对我们人类自己本身的这一个救赎。OK， 那从译你可以沟通这一个同人跟汉人，那么翻译至少可以填补这一种刚刚所说的这个鸿沟啦 OK， 这不同人种之间或不同这个民族之间的这一个问题 OK， 接下来这一个大概谈苏东坡，苏东坡我们都知道是一个非常豪放，而且他到任何地方去啊。那么大概都能够这一个跟当地啊揉为一体 ，OK， 所以他被贬到海南岛的时候，其实他比较有这一个所谓民胞物语，或者说这一个怎么说，他不愿意去辨别黎人跟汉人这样子的看法，所以我们今天这个题目其实是一个非常好的一个题目，知尔黎汉，均一民等，我如果没记错的话 ，OK， 大概是这样子的这一个意思 ，OK， 那这个我想这个苏教授他把这一个苏东坡的这一种 知尔黎民啊，那么都是一体啊，这样子的一个精神讲得非常非常的这一个好。不过提到为什么用这一个《诗经》的这一个，主要是用诗经》的这一个释字体，释字格啦 ，OK， 然后再加上一些这个尚书式的这一种语言呐，来写这么古早的一种这一个语言来写这一个苏轼的这一个本身的海南岛的经验 ，OK， 我想一个很大的一个原因是因为这一个释字格。给中国人的是一种这个像在宗庙里面这个唱歌，你不能随便 ，OK， 你必须要很严肃的这一个去面对。所以当苏轼面对一些这一个文化可能比他更低的这个所谓的边陲的这一个化外之民的时候呢，我想他不能够用这一个好像 playful 这样子的一种tone。来谈，他必须要用这个比较严肃一点的这一个《诗经》的题材，尤其是雅颂里面的那一种题材，然后再加上尚书里面的这一个文字啊，那么让你感觉到说他真的不是在开玩笑，他真的是对这一个他自己治下的这一个黎人啊，那么有一些看法的。接下来谈的这一个丘处机啊，这个我待会儿这一个再继续谈下去，因为我觉得纪晓岚的这一个乌鲁木齐杂诗啊，那么把新疆当故乡这个概念啊，是一个非常有趣的传统的这一个文人的或者说很少见的这传统文人的这一个看法。那么纪晓岚本身是不是这么样子的一种怎么说这一个怎么样？就是说民胞物语的精神，其实也不输这一个苏轼啦 ，OK。但至少他自己本身这一个跟柳宗元是有很大的这一个差别。那么这个纪晓岚乌鲁木齐杂事里面啊，160首诗啊。那么让你几乎感觉不出来太多这一个好像纪晓岚在新疆那个地方有苦寒之感 ，OK， 有一种不适应的一种感觉 ，OK。那么这个是纪晓岚的一个很大的这一个很有这个乌鲁木齐杂诗里面很重要的一个现象啦。所以怎么说？这个纪晓岚的诗，理论上这一个应该是，其实走到这一个地步，其实真的应该是这个中国古体诗里面啊，那么这一个表现出来的这一个概念啊，一个比较完美的一个可以当作是结束的一个概念。我想，苏教授这一个找到这个纪晓岚这一个人啊，那么这个来发挥，然后作为他的结论，我想是一个非常好的一个人。不过话说回来，这个纪晓岚居然他不应该说居然啊，他很自然的 OK。那么把这一个新疆当故乡是没错。可是对风土民情的刻画，偶尔他对风土民情的刻画，那么新疆好像被他这一个用他自己的话来讲，这两个字，我们其实从这个香港出问题以来啊，我们其实好像这些常常听到这两个字，也就是内地这两个字 ，OK， 这两个字我本来以为是我们很近代的这一个名词。我不知道没注意到说这个纪晓岚这一个在清朝的时候，当他自己被发配到这一个新疆去的时候，乌鲁木齐去的时候 ，OK， 那么他就在那一带这一个喊出这一个内地这两个字眼出来的，也就是说，他觉得新疆那个地方，那么对他来讲还是一样，就算不完全跟这个内地可以是一样，可是至少。新疆是相对于内地的一个概念 ，OK， 所以纪晓岚是有一种这一个怎么说一种这个以中国是有一种世界主义，那是没有错了 ，OK，cosmopolitanism，OK， 可是这种世界主义却仍然是一种以这一个中国为中心的 ，OK， 因为他喊出了内地，指的就是这一个他所在的。他以前这当官所在的北京， 或是中国这一个比较富庶的一些地带 ，OK， 所以这个苏教授说他是这个以中国为主的一种世界主义，我想这毫无疑问是正确的一个看法 ，OK。那这样一走下去的话，其实苏教授的这个 paper 其实很容易的会走到一个他自己没有发挥的非常好的一个地方，也就是所谓的华夷之辩 ，OK， 言夷夏之防，华夷之辩这一种问题上面呢，苏教授大概昨天晚上被我赶急了，赶快把文章这个丢出来给我看 ，OK， 所以他没在这一方面多做这一个讨论。不过话说回来啊，那么他也在提醒说，我们这一个应该要尊重这一个相异的这个文化，那么包括不同语言与习俗的这个相异的这个文化。如果中国文化要称为博大精深的话，那么 Derrida 所谓的 decentering，OK， 这一个概念啊，我想我们应该要特别的这一个注意，不要这一个随时随地都把自己当做这一个中心来看待，那么你才能够真的做到博大精深这么样子的一种情况。那么苏教授讨论了这一些刚刚提到的一些贬谪或是流放的这一个诗人啊，在启迪我们的就是文化上面互相的这一个尊重，这也是他后面没有完全这一个讲的非常清楚的这一个地方。那么最后啊，我想我要拿这一个丘处机来这一个谈我个人对于这篇文章的一个看法。OK， 丘处机啊，所谓的长春真人呐。丘处机，我们这个金庸读多了，其实我们对他并不陌生。OK， 全真七子里面他就是了。他的大漠见闻其实也有某种这一个程度的 positive 正向的这样子的一个感觉。但是长春真人的这一个西游 ，OK， 他的 Journey to the West 是不是真的这一个是流放？我想这是一个很大的一个问题 ，OK， 至少我个人对于这一个长春真人到西方去会，他西行去会这一个这个铁木真 ，OK， 我想成吉思汗 ，OK， 我想这个恐怕不是流放，而是应召而去，所以他是从当时这一个山东一带，其实是在金朝的这个统治范围里面，它反而不是宋朝的这一个那个文化上面的这一个中心，所以丘处机本身其实是在一个宋朝的人可能会认为是一个边陲的一个文化中心的地方的时候，那么他被招到另外一个跟他在山东不怎么一样的一个漠北去的这个漠北去啊。所以他对于这一个怎么说，这一个金人的文化，那么跟蒙古人的这一个文化，我想他应该是有一些不同的这一个不同的体会，不同的这一个看法 ，OK。只是我个人也真的是认为说，他是的的确确，这个在这一种旅外文学啊 ，OK， 旅游文学或是这外其实也说不过去。当时对宋人来讲，的确是外国了 ，OK。那当然，今天这个对中国来讲，这一个包括新疆在内，那么都是中国的这一个范畴 ，OK。所以我想，丘处机这一个怎么说？到这一个到这个漠北去见这一个成吉思汗啊。成吉思汗这一种西游记啊，那么似乎就应该做另外一种这一个看法，应该做另外一种这一个讨论才对 ，OK。那么把它放在这一个贬谪的这一个诗人里面呢，除了他也写诗，全真派的这一个怎么说？这个道士们啊，其实每一个人都是写诗的这一个高手。当然，丘处机也可以说他是一个诗人，不过他毕竟不以诗名这一个文士 ，OK， 他甚至也不以这个流放这一个让我们所知道 ，OK， 所以我想这一点我倒是提出来这一个就教于这一个 苏教授 ，OK， 那么待会儿我想他应该会给我们相当好的这一个他个人的看法才是 ，OK， 那我想我就很简单这一个报告到这里，好，谢谢。
那我想刚刚李教授他其实非常清楚的把苏远熙教授所讲的内容大致上更聚焦的做了一个说明，然后也点出一个非常有意思的一个问题，就是在华夷之变背后所隐含着一个在文化的，尤其是在中国文化的形成当中，有没有一种可能 diversity 的可能性的这样的一种提问？那我觉得这个是一个非常精彩的一个观察。那是不是我们把时间再请孙永琪教授来针对李世杰教授的提问做一些回应？
好，非常谢谢。我用英文好了。Absolutely, you're right that Zhou Tuji is he's not an exile, right? Not at all. I sort of felt the need to include an example of someone who surveys foreign populations and doesn't feel the need to invade them, to convert them. And so that seemed to be the sort of the right tone to introduce to that part of the essay. Probably when I revise it, I will violate chronology and go from Su-shi to Ji-yun, and then say, but this vision of a Sino-centric cosmopolitanism is not the only way to do it. And here is this guy from late Song, verging on Yuan, right, who is making this journey and seeing things in a different way. I also think that probably religious figures are going to be very different from officials and bureaucrats, right? Their way of experiencing the world, whether it be their local world or the outside world, would be different. So that needs to be brought out too. But I did feel that the 西游记 of Changchun Zhenyuan just brings a very different flavor into this existing tradition of narrating the foreigners, narrating the strangers, but usually putting them in an inferior place. And in this case, it's not happening. And so that's why it really attracted my attention and in fact, appreciation. About Liu Fang and Bianzi, yeah, it's one of those tricky things, right? Because there is a rarely used word in English that more closely corresponds to Liu Fang, and that would be rustication, right? Which also was used sometimes in the 1960s to translate 下放, is when the zhiqing had to be 下放, had to be sent off to the countryside. So rustication might be a more proper technical term, although the way it was used in Greece and Rome was often to send some eminent person off to his own estates far from the capital, right? Which is not quite what's happening with Han Yu and Liu Zongyuan and so on. It might have been what happens to someone like Xie Lingyun, who is a very wealthy and powerful noble, and when he's out of favor, he can be sent off to his estates, but that's not exactly an exile either. So it's a terrific problem of these near equivalences. Everybody who translates knows that the really devilish words are the nearly equivalent words, right? When there's a lot of distance between the meanings of a word in English, say, and a word in Chinese, we can negotiate that. We can always explain and interpret. But when they're so close and yet so far, that's the really delicate case. So, yes, perhaps rustication, but again, it would require a footnote to explain it. About Qu Yuan, it's funny. He's omnipresent in the literature of exile. And he's so much the reference that you expect to see in the writing of people who are exiled or rusticated, that when somebody completely avoids it, as in the case of Su Dongpo, it's a very noticeable absence, right? That's of course a feature of Chinese poetic tradition, because it's so cumulative and because you always expect to hear these resonances. It's kind of like hearing somebody playing the Brandenburg concertos without the trumpet, right? You say, wait a minute, isn't there supposed to be a trumpet in this thing? Isn't there supposed to be Qu-yuan in this narrative? And when he's not there, you really notice it. So if I could bring that out a little bit more and maybe include more texts that have explicit reference to Qu-yuan to show how that thread operates, that would be a good thing to do too. And yes, I'm intrigued by Su Rongpo's echoing of Shijing and Shangshu, and I think that's definitely part of it. What you say, that he needs to show that he's not joking and that he wants people to take him seriously. It might also be that, of course, Hainan is an area of very recent cultural diffusion. Maybe people who are studying, right, the literate Hainanese, maybe they were starting with Shijing and Shangshu, and this is the vocabulary that they had most in common with somebody like Su Shi. I don't know, it's kind of a theory, but I like very much your idea that he's trying to compensate for his usual reputation of being a very jokey, unserious guy to strike this extremely solemn note when he has some important messages to deliver. So that helps a lot. Yes, so anyway, I'm very grateful for your comments that bring out both what I was trying to do, and I'm happy that you appreciate some of the things, basically all of the things I was trying to do, while also pointing out some places where I should have painted a little bit more detail into the picture. And all I can say is that I'm very happy that there's always a chance to revise what has been done, and with suggestions like yours, the revisions will be good.
Well, you've done great enough. Okay, don't be 客气. Okay.
我们台上的讲者跟那个讨论人也大概都把他们的意见都表达。那不晓得我们在座的各位朋友各位师长有没有任何要跟那个苏元熙教授来提出你的一些观察，你的一些想法的。
正大哲学系詹康，excuse me for asking in Chinese in order to save time。第一个是那个像刚才李老师指出来的那个英文的 Exile 跟中文的贬谪跟流放是不同的，但是我还要再继续分说，在中文里面贬谪跟流放又是不同的。那贬谪是去当官，贬谪是去当官，所以我想。柳宗元他们苏轼都还有一个当官的使命，这样的使命在身上，可能心态也会稍有不同。流放的话，就是剥夺了官的身份，是完全是一种刑罚，是对士人的士大夫一种刑罚方式。虽然这样子讲，但是让我再讲长一点，就是说，在清朝的这些遭到流放的这些高官，到了边疆之后，其实还是在做官府的事。那是因为他们地位，就他本身是有这样的能力，所以地方官是不把他们当作普通人看的，是把他们当作高级顾问，请他们来帮忙的。所以林则徐他们都是这样子的，只是因为他们是被皇上流放的，所以不能够给他们任何的官衔，但是实质上是在做高级幕僚的工作，所以这边就是讲到了那个苏教授的那个注释这边的问题，就是这里没有页码，但在注释16的地方，纪云说他的160首诗都是他事后再去追忆而成的。这个注释6说他在西域的时候是草奏草习嘛。草奏草习可见都是在帮新疆的地方官天天在办公文，那么他没有时间作诗，吟咏就是作诗的意思。获得一联一句，一则尽过则忘，所以他没有写下来，所以并不是苏教授在正文这边所说的是那个怎么说？有一个笔记本，然后当时有记，他是完全没有，连笔记本都没有，是离开新疆 路上才开始去重新做。重新做，所以这160首诗是都已经离开了那个地方之后重新做的，那就会到后面您在讲的一个说这160首诗都没有提到跟当地人的交谈，我想也许第一个原因就是因为刚才他自己已经解释的，第二个原因我想说中国的诗，因为我没有读过乌鲁木齐杂诗，那是不是都是这样子的是一个七言绝句？以中国诗的情形来讲，通常摄入到跟对方交谈，甚至要把内容讲下来是几乎不可能的。山下问童子，言师才要去，就这么简单。就这样子，没有一个 the other 在里，那个有 the other， 但是以绝句或是律诗来讲的话，通常这是比较少见的。我想这可能是中国文学或者中国文体上的一个限制。谢谢。
Yeah, very good. Yeah. If you were writing, let's say, I don't know, a UFO or something, there would be a lot more room for giving other people a voice. But I do think that, again, there may be some kind of mutual influence between the choice of form and the kind of the snapshot-like style of this album. That he's more interested in describing moments and objects than he is in talking about people. And yeah, I agree. I think I was reading a little bit fast, and so 或者一连一句, I was imagining that to be, while he's still in Xinjiang, he thinks of a couple of lines and he writes them down, puts them somewhere, and then later goes and collects them. But I think that might have been just an imaginative reconstruction. So I will certainly fix that. But yeah, and it's absolutely true that the Qing, somebody like Ji Yun was absolutely not a nobody, right? He got a very different reception in Ulubuchi than, say, Su Shi, right? Because Su Shi, when he went to Hainan, at first there was some official who gave him a room in his house, but then there was a message that came down that said, you have to treat him as a non-person. So that official had to expel Su Shi. And then I think later that official was punished or demoted or something for having given him his room. So very different from Ji Yun, who is still a celebrity. He wasn't yet editing the Sikuquan Shu, that would come a little bit later, but he was famous throughout the realm. So when he comes to Urumqi, everybody is going to treat him as somebody whose opinion is going to be solicited on every matter, and who will be going from party to party in the evenings, right? So very different experience of exile, which makes me appreciate all the more how Su Shi manages to be adaptable and basically pretty optimistic and cheerful during what must have been an extremely trying period. So that contrast is very good, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you.
对不起，我有一个小问题哦，就是说，您刚刚提到就是说这一个贬谪跟这个流放两者之间的这一个差别 ，OK， 这是我没有想过的这一个问题。那我想请教一下，就是说，那你像李白他这一个，不知道是人家教他还是他自称这一个谪仙，那意思就是说，他到了人间的时候。他还是认为自己是一个仙吗？因为既然贬谪的这一个官呢，只是被贬官而已 ，OK， 那么似乎并没有这一个失去他官的这一个身份 ，OK， 所以像李白的话，是不是他自认为说我是天上被贬的这一个神仙，我到了地上来，我仍然是神仙 ，OK， 这我突然你刚听你讲的时候。觉得一个非常有趣的，也从来没想过的问题，这个提出来，我反而必须要请教你了，对吧？
我想这个我们能不能请王焕生王院士哈，也给我们一些的那个教导啊，来。
Thank you for a very inspiring talk. Good friends will come to. Learn from Professor Haun Saussy. I have two observations to aid. I think you might already know that, but I just want to add something that might be relevant to your talk. First one is I think you might know that in mid 19th century, in Peking, there is a new fashion that was to barbarize themselves, to adopt Xinjiang fashion, including eating, living, and by a group of high elite, like Zhang Mu and so. So it's now cynicized, but barbarize themselves as a new fashion. And that was led by several very important and high-rank officials. And some of them have some relevance to Xinjiang. Some of them ignite a new learning of this area. So 西北实地之学. So you might like to. So I agree with your conclusion that we should. But on the other hand, it seems that the exile also brings things back to the central of the empire. And the case I just raised was one of them by Zhang Mu and some others. So that fashion, in fact, lasts for quite long. So that's why we have in Leiqing, we have a big group of study on this area. That become a fashion, especially like Shen Zipei and some other, they become very famous. So that's the one thing that bring back from the edge of the empire and bring back to the center. So that's one thing that I want to add. And second thing is that I never noticed that Jiyin, I'm not a specialist of Jiyin, but I never read his 乌鲁木齐杂诗. And it struck me that he recorded the story about Tu'er Hu return to Qing China.
Right.
That must be 乾隆20年, 20几年.
Let's see. 1771年, right?
Yeah, 20几年, 是不是? 乾隆20几年, 好像20. 是不是? Yeah, because that I know a little bit about this story. That is quite amazing, and it become a movie recently. The Wobashi, the leader of this Tu'er Hu is Wobashi. He lead his tribal person left Russia to return to China.
Right.
That become a movie, 东归英雄传. 东归英雄传, and also a book published a long time ago by Ma Daren, Wobashi. I think the remnant of that tribe is Karmak 共和国, Karmak, Republic of Karmak.
Right, the
Kalmyks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Kalmyks in language Mongolian is the remnant, 留下来的人.
Yeah.
So Kalmyk. So this is a big story. So I am very surprised because the first time to learn that Jiyin wrote several poems about this this story and make it as you skillfully put it to coincide with Mencius and with others' ideal that this is all other people come to the China.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting and very inspiring. So I have nothing to ask. I just only add two observations to you. I hope that will be helpful. Thank you.
Extremely helpful. I'm going to go home and look up Zhang Mu right away and learn about the Xinjiang Re of the 19th century. About the Kalmyks in Russia, which were this other branch of the Tu'er Hu that were left behind, there are a couple of poems written by Pushkin when he was Liu Fang, when he was exiled from St. Petersburg. He was sent down to the Caucasus, right, close to Turkey, and he meets with a group of Kalmyks and writes poems about his attempting to seduce a Kalmyk maiden who refuses him. And so I thought this was, 非常有趣的. Jiyun is writing one story about one end of this nomad people, and a few years later, Pushkin is writing a story about the other end, and neither of them knows about the other, but in some way they're connected by the nomad groups, dividing themselves among the empires. And of course, Pushkin was also a very imperial poet, right? Who was very quick to see himself reflected in the dimensions of Russia. You know, there's that famous poem called Exegi Monumentum, where he says, you know, my monument in my poetry will be spoken in all the languages of Russia. And he mentions, you know, the Finns and the Poles and the Tungus tribesmen and the Kalmuks, right? The friends of the steppe. So anyway, Kalmuks have a big place in Pushkin's imagination, just as the Tuarhuta have a big place in the Qing dynasty imagination of Jiyun. So in a lot of ways, this thing that we call world literature was being made long before Goethe, right? Goethe in 1827 is supposed to have invented this label of world literature, but people were already doing it.
OK， 那不晓得还有没有哪一位朋友要提出你的一些看法的？哎，好，你的贬谪问题是？
没有，我想到，因为刚才讲到那个贬谪是还是去当官，那所以我现在讲一个我听到的说法，那个因为这是我的老师说的，吴根教授，吴根大法官，他去年过世了，但是以前因为他是海南岛人。他海南岛人，然后上课的时候，我们对海南岛人很好奇，因为台湾很少有海南岛人，我们就问他一些事，然后他就讲了一个说，海南岛有10几个县，就跟台湾这样子一样，但是呢，只有禅县那边的人会讲官话，为什么呢？就是因为苏东坡在那边贬谪过，当过官，所以那边的文化素养就比其他地方高。我不能确定他这个首先认知只有禅县会讲官话是真的，这个我不能确定。第二，是不是因为苏东坡的关系？但是这变成一种，也许是一种中国人的一种 attribution， 一种归因的一种说法，认为是这样，然后认为就是因为苏东坡去了禅县，没有去别的县，所以禅县就不一样了。所以吴老师就说。一个这样子的这种伟大的就是那个有怎么说很高水准的这种中原来的人，对于一个蛮荒的地方发生的影响是有这么大，可以流传这么久，这是一种中国式的想法。谢谢。
对，是有一个历史事实，是苏东坡的学生之一，是海南岛第一个科举有成功的人，我忘了是他考第几名，但是那个是历史所记的，所以就是因为苏东坡才会有海南岛的科举，海南岛的庄园就是
海南岛文昌一直到明清，重科举的人很多，它变成一个 very prosperous area of civil examination.
Sure, yeah. And as I was mentioning, Qiujun, right, who is a really important figure, and particularly important figure in this jiaohua idea, he comes from Hainan, right? Yeah.
好，不晓得还有哪一位老师或者是哪一位朋友，要跟苏文熙教授请教的。因为今天的这个课题其实非常有意思哈，涉及到是那个某种意义的中心跟边缘某种意义的中心与边缘，而且这还牵涉到那个从中心到边缘的人的身份他的自我那个情绪的统一性的一个问题，所以我觉得这是一个非常有意思的一个议题。不晓得我们在座的朋友还没有哪一位愿意再跟那个苏文熙教授来参与讨论的？怎么样，各位朋友？高长控，你有没有什么问题要讨论的？来，给你。
So
actually, I just had a marginal question that is related to the question that I asked the previous day. It's about this logic of the inscription that you've been exploring in all these lectures. So, and basically, I just want to ask you whether, reading your conclusion, you just ask an open question, whether there is general tendency, a natural tendency of Chinese culture, that will be this inscription of the other that to some extent ends by appropriating the voice or the other, or whether there is there are moments of fluctuation and moments in which the centrality of this cosmopolitan or centralized cosmopolitanism is put into question, or at least challenged. So the question, it seems, I mean, from the perspective of what you have been presenting these days, is that it seems that there is a direction in this inscription, and it seems that overall, and with exception of some few exceptions, your lecture seems to confirm that there is a tendency to appropriation, in which the forms of inscription of this centralizing cosmopolitanism does not really unveils itself as an inscription, because it constitutes the conditions for anything to appear or to be unveiled. And now my question will be whether we can just consider this from a contemporary perspective. So from the point of view of the status of the inscriptions in today's world, and in particular in the context of let's say today's Sinophone, the Sinophone world, or Sinophone sphere, and so on. And from the point of view of the characters, it seems that what we find is that the characters that before seem to, from the perspective of this history of Chinese literature, seem to inscribe or to determine the limits of the borders of this world, of this centralized world. These characters are now localized within a cultural sphere, not only national sphere, but a cultural sphere. They are also assigned to certain limits, but they are not really necessarily challenged as such. So the question is, from the perspective of the development of the system of inscription in today's world, the question is whether, rather than this inscription becoming the possibility for some kind of multiculturalism, or a possibility of affirmation of some kind of multiculturalism, actually becomes rather a system of inscription of competing universal particularities. Mm-hmm. So sorry, I just asked the question very messy, because I have lots of notes and very abstractly, but I don't know if to just get yeah.
Sure. You know, I would agree, right? Chinese literary culture is, you know, it's a very strong culture that tends to be deterministic in the way that it deals with things that are alien to it, and sort of to incorporate them, but to stamp them with its own characteristics. I think that's the normal case, and so maybe the question needs to be reoriented a little bit toward asking, what are the conditions that produce the exceptions when we find them, right? When there's a different attitude about cultural difference. In a way, the idea that started this whole series of lectures began with a discomfort with something that Lévi-Strauss said in 1955, so a little bit before I was born, but you know, in Triste Tropique, right, which is just an epochal book that made people start reflecting about cultural difference in Europe. I mean, it was not the only opportunity, but it had a very big public resonance in the Europe of 1955, which is, you know, the period of decolonization, and you know, a moment when a lot of people were rethinking the bases of what had been their world up until then. in this book, Lévi-Strauss says, no other culture has ethnography. Only the Westerners have ethnography because we're motivated by a feeling of profound regret and remorse for the cultures that we have exterminated. And so he's thinking only about Europe in relation to the Americas, right? And so he doesn't even bother to stop and ask, do other cultures have ethnography too? And so when I read that passage, I thought, isn't this wonderfully paradoxical? Because Lévi-Strauss wants to tell us to stop being so Eurocentric, right? So centered in our own culture. But his reason for doing that is itself Eurocentric, claiming that only the Europeans have ethnography, when that's obviously not true, right? You have Chinese ethnography from, Sima Qian, if not earlier, and, a prolonged, very detailed study of alien peoples and an attempt to draw them into Chinese culture in one way or the other, right? Sometimes as subordinates or as aliens, and sometimes as real participants in the constitution of the cultural system. So there, I felt the need to answer Lévi-Strauss and say, you're going about it wrong. And in fact, you can find exactly the same problems of ethnocentrism and the need to get outside ethnocentrism in a different cultural system. So that was partly what I wanted to develop in these 5 lectures. And I think, the grounds for seeing non-ethnocentric civilization in the Sinitic world are there and deserve to be explored and maybe led back to their causes, right? One could always come up with a sort of a one-off explanation that says, Sima Qian is so eccentric, it's all about his own life story and his feelings of rejection or whatever. And you could come up with a similar story for each of the people who are exceptions. But I think there's actually some kind of systematic reason that lies deep in the culture for why there can be such openness. I think the notion that Sher-shiueh just mentioned of the Taoist being a religious figure and therefore not really responsible to administrative definitions of subjectivity helps a great deal to understand that. And so that is something I'd like to work into a future revision of these essays into a more convincing argument. But anyway, so this is what it's about, right? In a cultural system that usually operates by inscription and imposition of an authoritative sign system on the realities, are there opportunities for something to bounce back or to seep back? And I think there are. We just have to notice them where they occur and inquire what their consequences and what their causes are. So that, I think, is a fun task for anyone who wants to narrate Chinese culture in a kind of a multiple way, which is my ambition here. So thank you.
谢谢。不晓得我们在座的朋友还有没有任何要提问的？
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I have 2 questions. One is about when you regard about the 乌鲁木齐杂诗, and this also relate to the 荣美吐司 and the 顾彩荣美游记 and the singer. I mean the singer Tibet border. This kind of people called the local king called 吐司,
right.
And some called 吐司 just like 白马.
Yeah.
It's Han 吐司. Yeah, 白马藏人 is belongs to the Han 吐司, and also, and I mean different ethnic group, but belongs to the different. I mean they share the same civilization. So this regard to the 汉人在边疆 and 边民在内地, and also Professor 张广达 talking about the 新疆大臣 and 新疆大臣陶模陶宝莲父子 and also the 陈佑兴 regard the 驻藏大臣 and some of the 中方, and he talking about the main things about the Tibet. So we view how is Xinjiang and the Tibet is by the description and the narrative by the Han people in Xinjiang, in Bianjiang, is interesting. So, but they share maybe one, just like you called civilization. So, and the second question is about in Tibet narrative, one called Gunder Frank is interesting. It's interesting the intelligence in modern Tibet, and actually he's kept up from the monastery, especially the Sandasi. He was kept up, and because of his very good relationship with his professor, so he just go out to the Indian. But he he tries another point of view. He not say, okay, this is Liu Fang. I took a Chaoshen paragraph. He tries the idea. Maybe 有的时候流放可以变成另外一种价值的转换。
对，就是我完全同意。对，这个刚过去的20世纪，事实上是流放的时代，有多少特别是知识分子，有多少知识分子被逼到国外去来生存。我们想到德国的那些知识分子逃到美国、英国、法国，多少中国知识分子移民出来。事实上，你不能不讲流放跟移民，而还讲20世纪的文化史。So I guess it's more the exceptional case in pre-20th century. Right there's more of an expectation in earlier times that people would stay where they are, but I think the experience of the 20th century causes us to look back on the past and particularly notice those examples of people who are forced to live in different circumstances among different people speaking different languages. Right, maybe they seem particularly meaningful to us, right? Where they could have simply been anomalous or eccentric or unfortunate people if we were reading them as, let's say, normal 18th century readers. Thank you.
OK， 还有没有在座的朋友要提问的
？Hello, Tomasz Czyński. Dear Professor, I would like to refer to page number 4, just to technical question, and maybe this technical question would be kind of inspiration for you to say a few more words about the theory of translation in a more broad line. So my first technical question would be the English translation of this quotation is made by yourself, or is taken from some English language translation of Saussy?
This is just a translation I cooked up myself, so no one else can be blamed for it.
Okay. So I would like to ask something that, of course, wouldn't probably have the final answer, but what would you say if I would say that respected Mr. Dongpo would be somehow better than old Mr. Dongpo?
I guess so, right, because old in English is not really a term of respect, right? You wouldn't, so maybe, venerable, venerable sounds more religious. Anyway, you're right. I think old probably strikes the wrong note in English.
It's like if it is not a nickname or something then of this person, then probably maybe, because I was thinking about this, that the respect that may be covering somehow, referring that this person is senior.
Maybe it could be grandfather Dongpo or something like that, right? Something that would, elder Dongpo. Well, yeah, you're right. This is a little thing that needs to be tweaked out a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you. But by the way, about translation, James Hargett wrote a nice article about Su Dongpo in Hainan, which I footnote somewhere here. But you see, when he comes to the last line of this little poem, he's too tender-hearted, where I see Saussy as being, kind of a force of chaos, right? He's coming to the village and he's making trouble with his cane, right? Da go jingji. which also has its little allusion maybe to the, the dogs and chickens in Lao Tzu. But anyway, I see him as being very energetic. And James Hargett says that he nudges the dog, which for some reason he reads G as huh. Maybe there's another edition that has huh, although I can't really imagine that. So he says, nudging the dog, it causes the herons to rise up like a misty wind or something. I think he's being misled by something that seems to be getting in the way of his understanding of the poem, because I see this last line as very, self-sarcastic, right? It's being very humorous in the way that Zhurongpo often is. But James Hargett, who is such a nice and gentle man, can't imagine Dago as being, hitting dogs. It's got to be nudging dogs gently. So I totally appreciate his spirit and his gentleness, but I also think it wasn't the thing to put in that translation.
OK， 谢谢。那不晓得我们在座的朋友还有没有要提问的？如果没有提问哈，我们今天的时间其实也差不多快到了啊。I think today's speech issue is very interesting. So we have a wonderful discussion today. So now please clap your hand and thank you, Professor Su Yuanxi and Li Shi-shue.